ॐ निरञ्जनं नित्यमनन्तरूपं भक्तानुकम्पाधृतविग्रहं वै ईशावतारं परमेशमीड्यं तं रामकृष्णं शिरसा नमामि. Dear friends, I am glad to address you all who are taking part in this Sankalpa Yajna program organized by Ramakrishna Mission Ashrama, Belagavi. I thank Swami Atmaprananandaji, Secretary of this ashrama, and Swami Mokshatmanandaji, the coordinator of the Sankalpa Yajna program, for inviting me to address you this afternoon. Yes, I would have loved to address you in a face-to-face meeting, but because of the pandemic, that is not possible. So we have to be satisfied with these virtual meetings for some more time, I guess. Now to my today's topic, seeking right solutions. I have chosen this topic because we all keep looking for solutions for our problems. And problems, I need not tell you that we have in plenty. Some people say that they have only problems in their life. Anyway, whenever we want solutions to our problems, there are only two approaches to find them. One is the right approach or the good approach, the other is the wrong approach or the bad approach. But this classification will immediately put us into another problem. That problem is of defining what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. But we will not get into that philosophical discussion here. Instead, what I plan to do here is to outline some of the usual approaches that we take to solve our problems. First, I want to tell you 4 approaches that stand out as wrong approaches. But before telling you this, I must warn that much depends on the person, situation and other factors in judging these approaches. Here we are making only some general observations. The first wrong method is trying to run away from the problem. This is perhaps the most natural and instinctive approach when we face with a problem. Between fight and flight, many people prefer flight, just like the Arjuna. Arjuna, as you know, wanted to run away from the battlefield. But thanks to Krishna, he failed. But we sometimes may try to run away and may succeed in running away from problem. But the hard fact of life is we cannot escape from all problems and at all times. Each one of us have our own duties to perform and responsibilities to discharge. Now, these duties and responsibilities always come with some sort of problems or the other. Because of the fear of fighting these problems, if we try to escape our duties and responsibilities, we cannot achieve anything in life. We become a burden to our family, to our society. So we must fight them. Swami Vivekananda, out of his own experience, has given us the command, face the brute. He learned this lesson the hard way. This incident, those of you who have read Swami Vivekananda's biography will remember, but it is worth recollecting here. It happened when Swami Vivekananda visited Varanasi as an itinerant monk. One day he went to a Durga temple there, and after having darshan, he was walking along a path where there were large ferocious monkeys. These monkeys were not willing to let him go that way. They started howling, shrieking and biting at his feet. Swamiji, seeing these monkeys, he started running. But as he ran, the monkeys also tried to run behind him. Finally, Swamiji realized that it is not possible to escape. Then he stood. Just then, a old sannyasi who was seeing the whole situation called out to Swamiji, "Face the brute." Immediately, these words brought Swamiji to his senses, and he turned back and faced the monkeys boldly. Seeing him, the monkeys fell back and fled away. That is the lesson. As long as we try to run away from the problems, like those monkeys, those problems will keep chasing us. But when we turn face to face with those problems, the problems will dissolve automatically. The second wrong approach is blaming others for our problems. This is also very common, and it is called passing the buck. We blame everybody except ourselves for our problems. A rather serious disadvantage of this approach is, by holding others responsible for our problems, we tend to think that we have absolved ourselves of the responsibility for working those problems. Such persons live in a fool's paradise, and a fool's paradise is not a healthy place to live. The third wrong approach is depending on godfathers or big shots. Often, people run to influential persons when confronted with problems. There is no harm if we approach a senior man whom we consider as our friend, philosopher and guide, and it so happens that he is in a high position. That is not a problem. But the problem is when we try to befriend a person only because of his wealth, power and position. That is wrong. Why? It undermines our own self-esteem. It weakens our confidence and in our confidence and in our abilities and worthiness. The last and the most despicable approach in dealing with problem is resorting to unfair means, unethical means in dealing with them. Lying, taking or giving bribery, suppressing the facts, spreading rumors, manipulating the situation or people, etc. These means are very, very unfortunate, and they are taken recourse to by some people to overcome their problems. They are very bad. Such practices may sometimes seem to work, but the solution that they give is only temporary. Not only that, when we take recourse to such means, we create bigger problems for ourselves. If you want proof of what I am saying, just look at the newspaper. Every day you will find so many people getting into bigger problems because of their moral lapses. In this connection, there is another point to be noted. Even good people sometimes fall into the trap of justifying their questionable actions by holding that the end justifies the means. Suppose you encounter a problem when you are trying to help somebody or while trying to discharge your responsibility. At that time, it is very tempting to advance our interest or get what we want by taking recourse to some small adjustments with truth, by making compromises. But making these little adjustments will put us on a sloping ground. That is, starting from a harmless white lie, we may go down to uttering the blackest lie without any qualms. Sri Ramakrishna has warned us that a person sliding down a slope will not realize how far he has gone down until he has hit the rock bottom. So one has to be very careful. So far I have outlined just 4 these approaches which are which need to be avoided in dealing with problem solving. I shall now tell you about the right approaches that we are expected to follow always. But here also we must remember that much depends on the person, situation and other things. Human life encompasses very intricate aspects. So it is difficult to make strict and uniform rules to everybody. Still, it is good to be aware of certain general principles. The first positive approach is cultivating an attitude of acceptance. A wise person has an attitude of acceptance towards everything that happens to him. He is convinced that his joys and sorrows are in the hands of a superior being whose working he does not understand. Acceptance, however, does not mean passive submission or non-resistance. Even while fighting problems, we may be convinced deep down in ourselves of the higher being and have an attitude of acceptance. This acceptance, if not anything else, will not allow us to go down into despair. The second approach is developing a mature world view. What is a world view? A world view is our philosophy of life, our conception of the world. A thinking person easily sees that this world is always you have both joys and sorrows, good and bad, like and dislikes in this world. This polarity cannot be avoided in this world because it is at the very foundation of human existence. He also understands, a wise person also understands that these polarities will always follow one another, and the happiness is always followed by sorrow, like is followed by dislike, and each of them will last only for a short time and it will be followed by its opposite. So with this understanding, with such a worldview developed with deep study and thinking, will enable a person to tackle his problems in a dignified and composed manner. The next point is taking responsibility for our own problems. All of us are quite aware of the law of karma. It pays back to each in its own coin. We sow what we reap what we sow. So there is no use blaming others for our mistakes. Once we fully understand this law of karma, we become careful lest we add to our bad karma by our wrong actions. The next positive approach is looking upon problems as opportunities to learn. Problems comes to us with lesson to teach. In fact, the miseries teach us more than pleasures. Swami Vivekananda calls sufferings and tortures as angels unawares. They have made us what we are today. Hence, a positive and open attitude towards problems will help us to become wiser. The next point is, not only problems make us wiser, they also help us to become stronger. When we are faced with unsurmountable problems and we keep fighting without giving up, then the energies which had remained untapped within ourselves will come to our rescue. This many great people have said. You might have heard the name of Booker T. Washington. He was born as a slave and he rose to become one of the most prominent leaders of the blacks in the USA. His autobiography, Up from Slavery, is a very inspiring book. He said once, success is to be measured not so much by the position that one has reached in life as by the obstacles which he has overcome. That is, in other words, more than our achievements, our struggles define us. They tell us who we really are. Lastly, in the case of devotees, these problems are actually opportunities to call on God. If only milk and honey are flowing in our life, then we tend to forget God. But these problems, when we face, we remember Lord and seek His divine intervention in dealing with them. So in this regard, we may recall the famous prayer of Mother Kunti recorded in Bhagavatam. She told Krishna that she prefers more of difficulties and hardships. Why? Because those difficulties and hardships will remind her of the Lord and make her pray to Him. So for devotees, problems are only helps in going near their beloved Lord. So to recap, we see that there are four wrong approaches we should try to avoid in dealing with problems. Number one, trying to run away from the problems. Number two, blaming others for our mistakes. Number three, depending on big shots or godfathers. And the last approach that we should avoid is taking recourse to unfair or unethical means. And then we saw that there are certain good approaches. What are those good approaches? Cultivating an attitude of acceptance, developing a mature worldview, then taking responsibility for all our problems, then developing strength and wisdom by facing the problems, and then for devotees it is an opportunity to develop devotion to the Lord. Before I conclude, I wish to tell you that one of the objectives of holding programs like this Sankalpa Yajna is to prepare the participants to struggle, to fight the problems of the life. In this program, I am told you have taken 5 simple vows and resolved to put them into practice day after day. This is very good. Such firm resolve makes a person's character stronger and helps him in fighting against the problems. Life is, after all, as Swami Vivekananda once defined, unfoldment and development of a being under circumstances tending to press it down. That, in other words, life is always a struggle. I wish you all the best in this endeavor, and I pray to Sri Ramakrishna that he may give us the strength to find only right solutions, to find our solutions using right approaches, and remove from our minds all tendencies, all inclinations to follow wrong means in finding solutions to our problems. Thank you.